and Managing Director of Warner Brothers Studios here in Leavesden, and then Sarah Root, come on Sarah, who is the Vice President of Warner Brothers Studio Tour London. Warwick Davis is also joining us this afternoon. Ivana Lynch, I think, is next. Okay. That was good, sorry. And Tom Felton, yes, I got you in the right order. Rupert Grint, okay. David Heyman, producer, David Yates, and David Farron. Thank you for joining us.
You kind of thought
nice round of applause for the world. Ladies and gentlemen, there are young ladies at each side, so when we throw the questions open to the floor, if you could put your hand up, we'll get a microphone to you. And if you could stand up then so we can see you nice and clearly and put your questions to our top table. But I'd like to start the ball rolling with a couple of questions. First of all, to Dan and Sarah, who are at the far end. And Dan, if I could come to you, two of you both, because there's a lovely recorded piece by, I think it's David Yates actually, on the tour. Some people might have missed it as they went round, but he says at one point that people were really such great fans of the books and very faithful and loyal to the books that the filmmakers wanted to give the audiences the very best experience they could. And I would like to ask you and Sarah what your guiding principles were during the making of Harry Potter, the London tour, as that was created, and what do you want visitors to experience?
Well, I think this was a completely unique opportunity for us to showcase the incredible talent that exists within the British film industry. We've been able to take the real sets, the real props, the real costumes, and transport them from the studio that we made all of the films in into this fantastic facility and put on display this quite spectacular sets and props that were created throughout the film series.
I think from my point of view, we've really tried to work with our team here to follow on the spirit from the filming, which very much lives on at Leavesden, and so our staff are very keen to follow on all the stories that came from the studio over the 10 years of filming, and to add a lot of fun and entertainment to the visit by telling the stories and introducing all of the secrets within the sets from British craftsmanship.
Okay, and generally now to our producers, director and the cast, it's a couple of years since you were here. Could I just ask you, going along the table from David next to me, right along to the end, what it's like to be back again and to see all of these sets recreated in this magnificent exhibition? David?
It's very nostalgic. It's been like an old school reunion too, because there's so many faces here today that we spent more time with than we spent with our families, I think is the truth be known. It's a great feeling. It just reminds me, at least, and I'm sure the others, that what we had was a one-off, and we'll never have it so good again.
It's a lot less dusty and drafty than it was a couple of years ago, and it's actually thrilling to come back and see the work that's been done on the studios, as well as the creation of this beautiful exhibit, which looks really fabulous. And as David said, a lot of nostalgia and pride, actually, for all the work that was done by all the creative teams and all the craftspeople who worked on these films. There's, I think Dan said it so succinctly, there's there's a real sort of, it's a real testament to the skills of the British film industry and a celebration of what we can do in this country with the talent that we have, and it's all here on the studio tour.
And I think one of the pleasures for me of the studio tour in general, and what's lovely to see, is to see a lot of those props and costumes and sets that the artists worked so hard and with such passion and care to create. And there's so much here that so much in the films that you couldn't see. There's so much work that you couldn't see, so much detail that just became part of the films. That I think it's great, it's really lovely and a real reminder to come back here and just see some of that detail up close. You know, every single prop, every single set is filled with such history for each of us. You know, I remember each one so clearly and have memories of each each place. So as David and David have said, it really is quite nostalgic coming here. Potter was a once in a lifetime experience, and we're all moving on to other things and enjoying that process. But this is very special. So it is it's like coming home.
Yeah, I found it quite moving actually coming back. This has been such a special place for me. I mean, I pretty much grew up here, went to school here basically, and yeah, it's just so great to see people going around and enjoying it and getting that same excitement as we did when we first came here. And I just remember seeing we watched the film and the screen went up and we see the door. It's just really kind of blew me away, and it's just so nice to have to be able to share this with everyone really.
Yeah, I couldn't echo that more. I didn't really prepare myself to come back. I knew it was going to be here, and when the screen came up and I went through the doors, I got very emotional very quickly. As Rupert said, it's a home to many treasured memories. So we're thrilled that it's obviously got a full-time home now, and so excited about what David said, that so many pieces of work that were crafted so beautifully, and maybe we didn't get the chance to fully appreciate them in the film. Now people can come along and really see the extent of the hard work that's gone into them.
I was just so happy to be back. I didn't get sad at all seeing how it's changed or anything. I just, because I've missed it so much, and I think it could have people could have put it in boxes and forgotten about it and kept it all a secret. But I just think it's great that we're sharing it, because fans still love it and still appreciate it. And yeah, and it's just I remember when I finished, and I remember finishing school at around the same time. It just felt like going out into the world and it being scary and not having that security of something, another home always there. So when they said that they were opening this, it was just such a relief that will always be there. Even though we're not here every day, we can always go back, and we were welcomed with open arms here. Everyone is so nice. So yeah, I intend to come back regularly.
Well, I mean, for me, having worked here for 10 years, I mean, it was an amazing experience at the time, and it is fantastic that to come back here again and walk through the sets once again and just recall memories of mainly of people, of great people. Some of them are here today that we work with, and we went through something to bring these films to the screen. And I really think you do still feel that. You feel that passion in the sets and in the artifacts that were created for the films, the costumes and the props, etc. And I think that's great. And also I think it's lovely that the work here could be an inspiration for artists and creative people coming through the tour as well, to go out and create their own work. So I think that can only be a good thing for the creative arts in general and the British film industry.
Actually work something you mentioned, I think is really true. So I think this is a tour for Harry Potter fans, but I also think it's a tour for people who are not necessarily Harry Potter fans, because I think it's such a great insight into making a film, and all the detail and work and care. It's amazing. It's like a how-to in many ways. It's a fantastic opportunity for people, for students, and for people interested in the film industry to have a look at it up close firsthand.
Just before we open it to our journalist here today, Dan, if I could come back to you again. You've heard the reaction of everybody here about coming back to this, but you've had a bit of a dry run, as it were, with some punters, if you like, coming through the door. What have some of those reactions been like?
Well, first of all, I mean, we couldn't ask for better feedback than from the folks to my right. I mean, to hear your words now is absolutely heartwarming to us. And for me, it really proves that we've got it right. But to lead on to your question, Hilary, we have had a number of pre-opening days, and the feedback we have been getting has been as emotional, if not more, than you've already heard. When this screen goes up in front of you, the cheers and the whoops and the hollers is really quite spectacular. When the Great Hall doors open, we have seen people break down in tears.
Not us.
So this does have a real emotional tie to people, and you can see the emotion that exists here, but it's out there with the fans as well.
That's great. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to put your hands up, we'll get a microphone to you. There's a gentleman here in the second row on the right-hand side. As the rest of you could indicate, we'll get to you in time. Okay?
Hello there. Firstly, I brought my children to do it on Saturday and they just loved it. The first thing is that this country finally has something to compete with Disneyland, which I think has been a long time coming, but we finally have it. The first question is to everyone. Some of you obviously have families, some of you will have families in the future. I was just wondering what part of this tour would you be most excited about showing your own kids?
Who would like to start on that?
Wow.
Well, I just say I brought my daughter here last night. It was her 15th birthday, and I had to work here at an event last night and introducing some people that helped bring this to fruition over the past few years. And I said, I've got to work, Annabelle, on your birthday. And she was like, oh no. And I said, well, would you like to come down to the studio tour and bring some friends? And she said, oh yeah, it'd be great. But seeing her reaction, and she's somebody that she was in one of the films and obviously visited me on occasion, but just seeing her reaction to this, and then her friends who had nothing to do with the film industry whatsoever, was really spectacular. She said it was the best birthday she'd ever had. And she celebrated her 13th birthday in the Great Hall with Alan Rickman singing Happy Birthday as Snake, which is quite a unique experience. So just to put that into perspective, that's Annabelle, my daughter. She's grown up around this industry, but she said it was the best thing she's ever done on her birthday. So I think that's just a flavour of people's wider reactions to this in the future.
I suppose, for me, because this represents, for a lot of us here, it represents more than a decade of our lives. And so I think, for me, with my son, who's going to be here on Saturday, and came before when we were filming, which he probably doesn't remember, it's the whole thing is something that just fills me with great pride and really just impressed with all the work that and as I say, passion and care that every single person who worked on these films brought. I suppose for him, he'll get to ride a broom and be photographed on that. That'll be pretty cool. So I think that's something that I'll definitely have him experience on Saturday.
Tom, would you like to talk about bringing
Yeah, I mean,
nephews and nieces? Or?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about taking my own nippers here one day, but I'm blown away at the prospect of seeing strangers' kids here, because they just the idea of seeing a youngster's face when these doors open, it just seems to be something that's going to be incredibly infectious. And yeah, I can imagine there'll be many 1,000 children who do it over the next few months. So who knows? One day, fingers crossed, maybe I will get the chance to see my own child in awe one day at the Great Hall.
And Rupert and Ivana, I think you want an answer from pretty much everybody on this, about bringing kids along.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, it's going to be such a special experience for anyone who's been into the films. And I think just walking on the sets and just kind of getting a sense of it, because sometimes I have to remind myself that we're not doing a scene, because it's so authentic. It's just like how it was. And yeah, the brooms were fun. Me and Tom both got on a broom yesterday.
Hard to keep that quiet. Actually, I was in I was in a Gryffindor row. I was a temporary Gryffindor for the day, but it was very fun, yes.
The passports actually went down really well with my two sons. They loved running around with the passports.
Oh, yeah. Oh, very cool.
Did they find all the snitches?
They didn't find the snitches, but they were very pleased when coming out that they got all the stamps, and they're still, they're pride of place in their bedrooms at the moment. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
But David, you were just saying that the passports went down well?
I'll just say my daughters are in their 20s, but I think they'll like them too.
And anybody else?
I get really nostalgic about Dumbledore's office, because that was where I had my screen test before I even got the part. So every time I go in there, I just remember that, and I remember how petrified I was and how excited. And when I was in there, I was just like, I really wanted to stay here forever. I was just so happy because I wasn't sure was I ever going to be back. And it's such a nice office. It's like an enclosure, and you can kind of imagine Dumbledore sort of sitting there for hours and thinking. It's that kind of space. So, and it's just really cool, all the books and trinkets. Yeah, that's my favourite.
Actually, that was a lovely afternoon. Your face when Dan walked in.
Oh,
That was a picture.
That's great. David, would you like to say something?
I mean, there's something about the Great Hall. It's just extraordinary. When we were making the movies, I remember we'd get these tour groups coming around sometimes, just friends of the crew, and even then, when we were working, I was preparing a scene in there one afternoon, and this kid just stumbled in, and he was with a group, and his face was extraordinary. And there's something about the way Stuart Craig, our production designer. He puts so much love into the work that he does that space, that room just has this energy and this vibe which is very, very special, and that for me is a highlight. David and I just walked around the exhibit earlier today and were knocked out by seeing some of the things that we've seen through the years, and then you come into the Great Hall and it just has that extraordinary energy and magic about it. And it's a very, very special space.
Okay, thank you. And there's a gentleman in the front row here. The microphone, just pass it on to both.
Yeah, hello. I just wondered when the idea was first mooted for this tour, and if you actually regretted destroying some of the sets.
I can pick that up. We've always felt that there was something really special about Potter. It wasn't until towards the ends of the films that we really took the decision to share the incredible sets, props and costumes with the world, and I'm delighted to say we've been able to do that. Throughout the production, we were carefully looking after a lot of these iconic sets and things like that. So yes, you'll be seeing an awful lot of them today, but there are also a few more secrets to be revealed.
Actually, what's very unusual about this series of films, because until quite near the end, we didn't ever know what was going to turn up in the next book, so we didn't really throw a lot away. Whereas most films, you finish and you just get rid, it all goes in the skip, and that's it, unless it's a particularly big part of a big deal for a studio, in which case some things go to a museum. But we tended to keep everything because you didn't know if the leaky cauldron was going to turn up in book 6 or 7, or so everything was taken apart very carefully, which meant that Dan had an awful lot to call upon when it came to assembling the tour.
Thanks.
Okay. Yes, there's a lady just in the third row there. Thank you. On the left-hand side, lady on the left-hand side.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Thank you.
My question was, what set or prop that's not currently part of the tour would you like to see added in the future?
And who would you like to put that
Anyone
to? Anybody on the top? David, would you like to?
No, can you start at the other end?
Just start at the other end. Give me time to think.
Give me time to think.
Well, maybe we could ask Dan a little bit about that. Well, you know, with that the wealth of material that you had, some things must have fallen by the wayside. You just couldn't cram it all in.
Yeah, it's obviously always a tough decision to decide on which props and sets one's going to bring forward. We hope we've brought the most iconic sets forward that everybody wants to see, but quite clearly there's not enough space to cram everything in, because as David was saying, we did keep absolutely everything. Sometimes I wonder where we had the room, but that's another story. So there is a lot more to come. I think we have absolutely done the films justice with the sets and the props and the costumes that we've been able to put on display here.
I mean, here are a couple that I'd love to see, but I doubt that. I mean, they're quite big sets, so I'm not sure there's room. But I'd love to see the banking hall at Gringotts. I'd love to see Voldemort's, the Malfoy Manor, Voldemort's, scene from Harry 7 Part 1. I'd like to see the inside of the Weasley home. I think that's just so magical and bonkers.
Thanks, David.
Anybody else in the?
I love the room of requirement, but again, that was a ridiculously huge set that had, piles and piles of various bits and pieces. So I'd imagine that would be fairly unpractical. But yeah, I'm blown away with the wealth of the stuff that we do have here to worry too much about the stuff we don't.
I like the Lovegood House for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I miss that place. I think that one would be hard to rebuild though, because they blew it up. And also, and the paintings on the wall, they were all like hand painted, so it's really, but that would be fun. I really like that space. Otherwise, it's fine. It's perfect.
I didn't learn the cloisters from Gloucester.
The
Gloucester Cathedral.
We're bringing a lot of magic to life, but I'm not sure we've done that.
Were there one or two things that you could have done without, like your portraits, for example? I thought yours was
I thought,
magnificent,
well, you know,
David.
the only person who I thought would actually have that in their house was my mum. Yeah.
They look really good. If we could bring the microphone forward to the front row, the lady just second in there. Thank you.
Thank you. This is to Rupert. Could you tell us something about the experience and feeling you had when you entered the Great Hall for the first time? You were only 11, 12 at the time, and was it exactly there or was it somewhere else, and was it exactly the size than what it is now?
Yeah, I can remember that very clearly. It was fairly kind of quite one of the early scenes we did, and it was just such an exciting time anyway, because I'd never been on a film set. I had no idea how films were made, and everything was happening really quickly, and it was quite overwhelming anyway. And yeah, I remember stepping into the Great Hall, and it was kind of, I mean, yeah, it's exactly like that. It was the tables were dressed with food, and there was floating candles, and it was just, yeah, it was. I mean, it reminded me, because I saw it. We did the tour yesterday, and when I walked through the doors yesterday, it was a similar kind of feeling. It reminded me of that a lot. It was just awe, really. It's just such a huge space, and yeah, and now there's a lot of memories of that place, and it's kind of like a landmark at least, and so it's a really special set.
Okay, there's a gentleman just behind you in the second row. I think the second person in. Thank you.
Hello, this is a question for any of the cast. What do you think about the recent success of new films like The Hunger Games, for example, that they are trying to, let's just say, like, create these different worlds and everything? Do you think, what do you think about the success about this type of films, that they might, you know, be the new films that we're gonna see keep seeing in the future, like Harry Potter was or has been?
I have to say, I love the Hunger Games film. I thought it was great, and I think when people compare the two films, I mean, there's such different worlds, but I think it is a tribute to Harry Potter because they've sort of set the bar, and I think all these franchises, they'll look at how Harry Potter was managed and how the world was preserved the way, you know, we did 8 films and kept the same cast and all, everything was just respected. The books were honoured so much. So I think, yeah, I like the Hunger Games so much because it did that too. But then they're very different films, and it's a very different world. And Harry Potter's kind of timeless. And I don't know, is Hunger Games the same way? But
Well, sure, I was a fan of the film. I did enjoy it. I think it's a credit to Joe more than anything as well. I remember when I was 10 or so, reading really wasn't the thing to be seen doing during your lunch break or after school. It was far more playing footy or something like that. So I think she pretty much single-handedly changed that, and obviously at the end of 7 books, lots of excited readers wanted to read something else, hence Twilight, Hunger Games, and hopefully a lot more, you know, successful books and film franchises will come out of it as well.
Anyone else from Rupert, would you like to comment on that? Have you seen it?
He gets very defensive.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I think. I mean, 12 years ago, I never would have thought that we would be here talking about a Harry Potter tourist attraction. It's kind of unbelievable the way it's kind of just become this. And yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see.
And Warwick, I think that question was to all of the cast members. Would you like to make a comment on that?
I don't have an opinion on the Hunger Games, right? Because I haven't seen it. But of course, you know, when you create something like Harry Potter that becomes sort of almost a part of popular culture, when it does become that, the other filmmakers will try and they want to follow that trend, I suppose, and audiences will also now be looking to something else to sort of fill that gap. You see it, you know, if you look back over decades, you see kind of trends in styles and genre of film happening, and so I think that will probably continue, which is great when you're a character actor like myself. So you hope that kind of trend into that genre continues, and Because it means work.
I think what the success of Harry Potter most certainly encouraged an interest in family film. So I think that always existed, but its success maybe pushed that even further. Think about Twilight and Hunger Games; they're very different to Harry Potter. They're completely different. It's not. They're comparisons that are made because they're hugely successful and they involve young people, but they are very, very different in spirit and very, very different in theme. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why they're successful, because I think films, you look at a film like Percy Jackson, which was trying to be very much like Harry Potter in a certain way, and the book was wonderful. The books were good, but somehow I think the films that really work and the books that really work are those that have an identity unto themselves and not trying to be the next Harry Potter or the next Twilight or the next Hunger Games. That's what, or the next Star Wars, if you go back, which another Warwick Davis film. Warwick, are there any other films you'd like me to mention?
It'd take you such a long time to go through my list.
But those films, each of those films, or each of those series of films, have an identity and have a very distinct identity, and that's, I think, one of the things that makes them work.
Just before we go to the floor, I mean, this might be a good point to say, of course, Warner Brothers put so much commitment into the 8 films as well. Dan, would you like to take that a little further? Because, of course, we can see extended buildings behind here at Leavesden. Would you like to talk about Warner's continuing commitment to the studio and filmmaking here in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, it has been a completely unique experience for us to be able to create the studio tour. But not only have we been busy creating the studio tour, we've also been renovating the studio facility that we were making the Harry Potter films in over the last 10 years. To answer your question earlier, the Great Hall is the Great Hall that we used in the films. We literally picked it up piece by piece from the existing studio and transported it into the new building that we're within at the moment. So the commitment is absolute. It's incredible that a company such as Warner Brothers has put a real stake in the ground and made this level of commitment, not only to the studio tour, but to the studio facility itself.
It's marvellous news for the English film industry, actually, because there isn't enough studio space in this country for when there is a lot of work around. And it's a huge commitment, and we, as the English representatives of the English film industry, thank them enormously for this great show of faith.
I think it's fantastic, and I also thank them for putting a roof on those buildings that doesn't leak, because throughout the making of the films, it's funny, they decided to fix it when we were done. But while we were making them, there were these sort of Heath Robinson type devices, where there was a leak. I think we had 2 people full time when they spattling, or 4 people spattling the roof, because it was always leaking. And there'd be a leak come down, and there was a plastic tarpaulin that would lead the water down into a narrow pit, which put it into a bucket, which somebody would come over and change. So thank you for putting roofs on those stages.
So it's really exciting that we've now been able to create a world-class studio facility that can cope with any sort of production without leaks. It's fantastic.
Actually, you know what it is about, the tank here is going to be sort of the biggest, I think, in Europe.
Yep.
The stages are going to be fantastic. It's a great place to be. I mean, we had a fantastic time with making these 8 films, and I can't wait to come back.
It's also unique in this country, the size of the back lot. There isn't none of the other major studios have a back lot that can even compare with what Dan has here. So it's a great place to make films.
Thank you.
There's a lady in the 3rd row, and then we can pass the microphone to the gentleman in front, and another question from the other side. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. A question for the cast. If you could choose just one object, one item to represent what you've experienced here, what would it be?
One of these would be pretty nice. I don't know really. It's tough. I suppose wands are an obvious one. Our wands have been with us since the beginning of it. They kind of have sentimental value, definitely. I'm trying to think what else. Costumes is an obvious one again. Bruce?
I
I don't know. There's so many things. I actually have a flying car. It doesn't actually fly, but, and that's really cool.
The Anglia, yeah, that's very cool.
And Warwick and Ivana?
Did you ask, there's an object here that we would want to keep for ourselves?
Yeah.
Yes,
That also represents us.
that represent what you've experienced.
Represents our time.
My face,
Yeah.
which is here. Although I obviously was very attached to it at the time of the film. But I actually don't want to see it again because it's quite a sort of painful process to have that glued on at 4 o'clock in the morning. So no, I've had enough of my face. What do I want? What do I want? You become very attached to one. Tom said it already, but as a character, you've given it just before the scene. And immediately you finish the scene, you have to hand it back. But while you've got it, I don't know, it just feels cool. It feels cool to have a wand. It's a bit like a lightsaber, but it doesn't light up.
And Ivana?
Mine would be, I think, the radish earrings, because they were so, they were just her staple. I think when we were deciding Luna's look, there was a while we were like, oh, should we have different? Because you could go any kind of way with Luna's style. It was so crazy and strange. But then we just decided to keep the radishes and make them something she always has, and it kind of represents the way her personality doesn't change, because she's so happy, she's so comfortable and with herself and free that she's not going to change herself. And yeah, and I just, you see them and you think Luna, and you just, they were fun to wear as well. They're cute.
Okay, and the gentleman in the second row, and then we can.
Hi. I actually have a twofold question. The first bit is, the tour is phenomenal, the attention to detail, the scientific whole. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the design of the tour itself. Were people who were involved in the film involved in designing the tour? Secondly, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your projections on the local economy and what your expectations are.
Sarah and Dan, I think, perhaps.
Yeah, happy to pick that up.
Yeah.
To your first question, absolutely. We work very closely with the filmmakers and the crews that were on the films themselves, and they came back in to help us recreate the sets as they were on the film. So you're seeing the real deal here. And secondly, I've been here since 1994, growing the studio over the years. Have always worked very, very closely with the local community. So it's very much part of our makeup that we engage with the local community, engage with local business to ensure that this is a great asset for the local community as well.
Thank you.
Many of our staff live locally, and they've been here talking to the production crews, many of whom also live locally, and they've been sharing all their great stories with them. So it's a very nice local story.
Okay.
Hi. And second
I think this one goes to Sarah and Dan. I was wondering, now we're starting with Harry Potter, what other Warner Brothers movies do you think you're gonna put here as well in the future?
We're not even open yet. We don't open till Saturday, and we're absolutely focused on selling the tickets for the studio tour as the making of Harry Potter. So for now, I think we're sticking to Harry Potter is our reason for everything we've got here, from the sets, the props, the costumes. It's the home of Harry Potter. That's what's important.
Thank you.
Dan, would you like to add to that?
I think Sarah's
Just
answered.
said it all. Yeah.
I think you've got to ask the fans.
Okay, there's a gentleman, I think just in the third row there. Yes, thank you, sir. Mm-hmm.
Hi, it's José. I'm from Spain, and Spain people usually say that a good wizard never explains his tricks. So now that this big studio explains all your magical tricks and the secrets of Harry Potter, are you afraid that you are not as good wizard as you were?
A good wizard never explains his dreams, his sueños. Yes?
Tricks.
His tricks, that's what it was.
It's actually really exciting to share it with everybody, actually. All the hard work. And actually, I was just looking at this table here, which actually belongs in the Great Hall. And it's the kind of table that you'd see in a big wide shot. You know, you'd never focus on it too closely, but as is typical of Stuart Craig and the production team, you can see right here that they've taken a penknife and they've sort of scrawled into it a little broomstick and a little bird. in such intricate detail. And that's the kind of level of detail that will never, ever, ever be seen in one of our big wide shots or even a medium shot. And that kind of level of detail goes into everything that Stuart and Stephanie and their team produced. So it's lovely for people to be able to come and look around and see how much attention to detail went into some of these amazing things that they've made. So I think it's great to share, and we're very proud to share these things.
And also, we know lots of other really magical things that we haven't told you yet. So we're okay.
And actually, I think it is, as David, just picking up on what David said, I think it is actually really important to share some of this, because the film industry is a living thing, and I think that we are not the last film. There are films that there are new people. One of the real pleasures of working on Harry Potter was seeing people, actors, but also crews grow and develop and learn along the way. And if we can be, putting these items out there for a young artist to have a look at, for someone who's thinking about going into not even necessarily the film industry, but into anything that is creative, I think this is a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And I actually think it's a responsibility almost for us to share it. And listen, Harry Potter fans really do love this world, and I think we just feel really privileged that Warner's has taken the time and the expense to share it with everybody else. I mean, it's a real commitment, just as is their commitment to the film industry, and we're incredibly, we as filmmakers and actors, I just feel incredibly grateful to them.
Actually, there's so much about what we do every day that we take for granted. The people who aren't initiated and aren't lucky enough to be part of the filmmaking fraternity just find absolutely fascinating. So it's a privilege to share it.
Every single one of these statues sculpted by an individual sculptor.
By an artist.
Every single, these walls molded, made. I mean, it's just incredible. And to share that, we're very lucky that we are able to share it this way.
Okay, there's a lady just at the end of the second row.
It's been said that the films are a testament to the strength of the British film industry and the talent there. And it might be argued that there's not really a British production company that would have had the resources to produce something like this. So is there hope that Warner Brothers will go on to invest more in the film industry, the British film industry?
Warner Brothers actually is, of all the studios, has invested more money in the British film industry, I think, than any of them. I mean, they have, and not only, this is another point, not only financial support, but creative support. I mean, I came here in 1996, and they gave me a deal. They paid for my office to try and find material. They've supported, just talking personally, what we, my team, have tried to do. They've taken chances on directors. I mean, may not, but a director who'd never directed a feature of this scale. Charles Hepburn. A director who'd never directed a film of this scale to finance, to put in this. So they've supported in a huge way, creatively and financially, in supporting British producers, British talent, and British crews. And I mean, clearly, the people working in this country, they're doing it for a reason. There's great, we have something to offer. But they are coming here, and by the very nature of building this facility, they're not doing it to go away. They're doing it as a sign of future investment. I mean, I don't work for Warner Brothers, but I can't help but believe that that's the case. Dan, maybe you can speak to that.
I think you've answered it perfectly, and just to reinforce on that, the studio facility has been created not just for Warner Brothers productions, but for third-party productions as well. So we have absolute confidence in the British film industry, and we're here to ensure that we've got a facility to be able to cope with whatever any production might throw at us.
And you know what, I think the wonderful thing about Potter and what it's meant for our industry collectively is it's shown the world that we can make major productions of this industrial scale and deliver them, and they're hugely successful. So, which is, bodes well for the future.
Thank you. This gentleman here, and then we'll go right to the back for another question. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, Frederic from Belgium. Question for the cast. The last Harry Potter movie was released nearly a year ago, and And since then, you have made other movies. Tom played in Planet of the Apes and so on. But you are still here talking to us about Harry Potter. So do you think that you will always be considered as the people who made Harry Potter movie, or it will be easy to be known for other parts and that one day you will be considered for those other roles?
Rupert, would you like to start with that? Always be connected to Harry Potter?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I'll always be Ron to most people, and yeah, it doesn't bother me that. I mean, I'm really proud to be a part of this, and I've loved playing that character, and yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to kind of moving on and exploring different things, but yeah, it's always been a really kind of special part of my life, this, and I'm very grateful to have the chance to be a part of it, and yeah.
No, I couldn't echo that further, mate. I mean, it's especially having a chance to leave and come back and see the sets again. It's only reminded certainly us how lucky we were to be part of it. And there's definitely no burden. I mean, someone used that word earlier. So how are you going to shake the burden? There's definitely no burden. We're exceptionally proud of our work, as everyone is that has taken part in it. And I hope to be remembered for the rest of my life as Draco. Definitely. Obviously, we all hope to do other exciting characters as well, which is great, but I don't think any of us are hoping to shake our characters too soon.
Right. I don't think any of us could regret taking it on at all, because it's opened far more doors. It's for me, it brought me so many opportunities, and forced us to grow up with really nice people. And also, I think we were just so lucky being. Even though everyone was young when they did it, everyone was supportive because you had other cast members, and it didn't really feel like work. So it was just so. And if people are typecasting us, that's them, and it's kind of our challenge to break that, which is fun. And yeah, it's brought us and we have fans and people who like us, and that's just so nice. Like as young actors trying to find new work, it's not everyone has that. A lot of people have to go forward blindly and with no one telling them that they're any good, and we don't have that. We already have so much support, so that's just been I couldn't ask for more personally, and I've always considered it such an honor to play Luna. So yeah, I hope, like Tom and Rupert said, I hope I'm always associated with Harry Potter.
Rick?
Well, I've been in many films. But I think to have 8 Harry Potter films and they rank amongst the most successful films of all time on your CV is not a bad thing in any way. And for me as an actor, certainly everywhere you go, people know of Harry Potter. They have either fans of the books or the films, and they have a story to share with you about their enjoyment of it, and that's terrific, because that's certainly as an actor, that's what you do. You go out to entertain, and being put on a stage such as the Harry Potter stage is a very far-reaching one. You get a very wide audience from that. So I think it's terrific, and as David said earlier, I'll pay him later, I've been in other franchises or other series of films. Star Wars is an example, and I still talk about that, and that was 30 years ago. So I'm sure in 30 years' time we'll still be very, very proud to talk about our involvement with Harry Potter.
Thank you. Gentleman right at the back, and then may have a question. Time for one more after that. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, it's Christopher from Germany. Guys, it's been mentioned you have a worldwide massive fan base, and you probably have the biggest movie premiere at Trafalgar Square the world's ever gone to see. So I was wondering, after all that happened, in terms of the adoration from the fans, did it in a way die down a little? Are they calming down, or is it still the same when they recognize you on the streets?
I'm still adored. I've tried to calm it down, to be honest. It's a nightmare, honestly. I think you can be over-adored. I'm certainly experiencing that. I don't know about you, so. Yeah, I mean, are you experiencing that?
I confess, not so much. No. But I definitely don't see any flames being doused over the years, and I don't think the die-hard Potter fans are going off to seek another franchise to try and find equal. They're still as die-hard as possible, I think, and I'm seeing that every day, whether it's on the internet or whether it's in the response to something like this. I've heard thousands of people all across the world being endlessly excited to come to London now. Not for the Olympics, but to come to the Harry Potter tour, which seems to be overshadowing everything, which is great. Fantastic.
Still being recognised.
Rubes, you must have, yeah.
Yes.
No, I haven't really noticed it. Kind of, it's always. It's great. I've never really tried to hide from it anyway. It's always been kind of quite a nice thing to have, and people are always so nice. I have the disadvantage of being ginger, so I do kind of stand out a little bit. But yeah, no, it's great. I've always kind of fully embraced it. It's nice.
And Ivana, you're still with me?
Yeah, same. I haven't. It just isn't waning, and that's a good thing because like if it hadn't been for the continued support, this studio tour wouldn't have happened. But it's because people still love it, and they still just I don't know. We get such great reactions when people when fans recognize me, and they're happy because they like Luna, and it's just such a nice thing to exist, to make people, if you're able to give them an autograph, and you see the other day I gave a friend an autograph for their cousin, and she showed me a video of this little girl just freaking out because I just signed a piece of paper, and that's like so amazing to be able to just make someone happy with that. So yeah, it's just support for us to keep on going and doing what we want to do. So I'll never complain about that.
Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you to thank our guest here this afternoon? Thank you very much.